Greetings, everyone, and thank you for joining us. If you are a new or a regular viewer and haven't subscribed to us yet, please consider doing so. It really helps us provide more quality content on a regular basis. Also remember, you can always change your mind if you don't like the video. I was far away in the bush near Canberra, staying for a few nights with my soccer team. We were in a cabin about 50 minutes from the nearest town. The cabin sits in a valley surrounded by big hills and mountains. During the day, there are lots of animals around. You can see kangaroos, wombats, and emus wandering in the bush and valley. Then, one night when me and my friends were bored, we decided to go for a walk late at night in the valley. It was really dark, around 9:30 to 10 o'clock. So we use our phone lights. We're used to being in the New South Wales bush, so we feel safe and at home out here. There are about 8 of us, and we've been walking through the valley, laughing and having fun. Now, we're about 2 kilometers away from the cabin. We start walking on a path that goes from the valley to the top of one of the mountains. The path continues for about another 2 to 3 kilometers. When we get to the end, it takes us right up to the top of the ridge. And you could see almost all around, like a big circle, looking down at the valley below. Behind us, there were lots of bushes, land and mountains stretching out far away. At the end of the mountain, there was a huge rock, much bigger than any 2-story house you can imagine, and it had a weird shape. It hung over the edge of the mountain and had caves going through the middle of it. The cave went down into the ground, and we didn't know where it led. We didn't want to go in and find out. There was a sign in front of the rock saying that this land is sacred and still visited by spirits. My friend and I saw the sign, but we thought it was nonsense, so we joke about it and start throwing rocks. Then we decide it was time to go back to the cabin. As we were walking away from the huge rock on the cliff's edge, about 50 meters away, I suddenly felt like someone was watching me. My mind told me to run, but I didn't know why. When I turned around and looked back, what I saw haunted me for 2 years, giving me nightmares. There was this creature. It seemed like a man, but it was really skinny, with arms so long that its hands reached below its knees. It was huge, at least 8 to 10 feet tall. It stood near a gum tree we had passed a few minutes ago, and its head was as high as one of the branches. It just stood there, staring straight at us. My friends noticed I had stopped walking and looked back at me. They saw it too. The creature bent down and picked up a log that was maybe 3 to 4 meters long and as thick as a telegraph pole, then handed it to us. As soon as we saw the creature, we all ran straight down the side of the mountain, tripping over and rolling down. We met up at the bottom. My older brother was supposed to come the next day, and when he arrived, we told him everything. Luckily, we all made it back to the cabin and stayed there until sunrise. When my brother got there, he said he didn't see anything, but he felt a strong energy up there, like something was watching him the whole time. It was probably the scariest thing we experienced on that trip. I'll never forget that night, and I'm curious if anyone else has had a similar experience. If you have, I'd love to hear about it. I guess the easiest way for me to explain what happened to me and my best friend many years ago is to start by saying that we had no clue what we were seeing in those woods. I had never seen anything like it before, so I didn't know what to expect. There were no ideas in my head about what it could be or should be. Because of this, my story won't have any typical scary stuff like ghosts or monsters with fancy accents. I'll just tell you what really happened. So about 20 years ago, when my life didn't have much direction, I had finished high school not too long ago and was working at my family's business, planning to take it over one day. Many of my friends had gone to college in bigger places, looking for better opportunities, so I hung out with one of the few friends I had left in town, a guy named Matt, who I'll call Jeff. We often spent our time doing outdoor stuff because there wasn't much else to do around here. Some days we went fishing, other days we swam or went boating. When it was hunting season, we'd hunt animals like deer or elk, which had been brought back to the area recently. On the day I'm talking about, we were in his Jeep, driving on rough roads and trails in the nearby mountains. It was around 9:30 in the evening, and the sun had just gone down. When we reached the trails, most of the roads we travel on were wide and flat, covered with gravel, sandstone, and bits of coal. These materials fell off the big dump trucks that passed through the area, carrying stuff from the nearby businesses. We stumbled upon a trail that neither of us had seen before. It wound around the back of the mountain and was just a narrow dirt path, barely wide enough for the car. Tree branches hung over it like the gnarled arms of an old creature from the wilderness, forgotten by time. We were having fun and didn't really think much about these warning signs. After about an hour, we realized we had strayed from the main trail and need to turn back to avoid getting stuck. Jeff noticed a trail ahead that branched off to the left. The trail led us to a big field with tall weeds surrounded by maple and oak trees. This is where we decide to turn back. But something strange happened here. As Jeff slowed down the Jeep and turned, the headlights shone over the top of the tall weeds and landed on a big black shape. He suddenly pressed his foot hard on the brake, and we both froze in our seats, staring ahead at the spot where the light shone. But our minds couldn't make sense of what we were seeing. There, standing about 8 to 10 feet tall and 4 to 5 feet wide, was something I had never seen before and haven't seen since then. The blackness of the figure blended with the darkness of the surroundings, so much that it seemed to soak up the light from the Jeep's lamps. It was like it was swallowing the light instead of reflecting it. We couldn't see the shape clearly because it didn't reflect any light. Instead, we could make out its outline by looking at the trees and grass around it. It looked like a big man wearing a wide brim hat and a long coat. The hat sat on top of what seemed like a skinny neck, leading to shoulders and arms that fade into darkness without any clear edges. There were no legs, and we couldn't see any facial features because the light seemed to avoid the creature, making it hard to see. "Do you see what I see?" I asked Jeff, my voice trembling. As we sped backward, the tires kicked up rocks and dust, creating a dusty cloud around us. We were both really scared and confused, trying to understand what had just happened. Our minds were blank as we struggled to make sense of it all. We only stopped moving backward when Jeff's truck crashed into a small dogwood tree on the other side of the trail. It was like that crash woke us up. Jeff quickly put the gear shift into first and drove fast down the trail, while I screamed and cursed like never before. Finally, when the tires touched the road, it felt like we had been driving forever down that scary mountain trail. We narrowly miss accidents over and over, just focus on getting away. For the first time since seeing the Hat Man, we look at each other. Without saying a word, we understood exactly what the other was feeling, just by looking at each other's faces. He drove me home, but when I got out of the car, I didn't know what to say. I looked at him, and we just nodded at each other. Unfortunately, we never talked about what happened with the Hat Man again. It's only been in the last few years that I've heard stories about something called the Hat Man, or Watchers. At the time, I had no clue what I saw or what to call it, but I knew it was there. I don't know if we stumbled upon something we weren't supposed to see, or what exactly happened. This is the first time I've tried to write it all down. I guess if there's a lesson, I'm not sure what it is. Just be careful out there. When I was a kid, every summer in July and August, my family would go camping for 2 weeks at White Lake State Park, so I have lots of great memories from there. We did things like rollerblading, playing with Nerf guns, flashlight tag, and having water balloon fights with my cousins and other kids in the campground. But When I was about a teenager, my family stopped going camping together after my grandma passed away. One memory from one of the last years we went sticks in my mind. It was more than 10 years ago. I was 16. It was around 10 at night when I saw my friend was calling me. My family was sitting by the campfire and having fun. I want some quiet, so I left to call back. I walked along a narrow path between other campsites. It leads to the bathroom, but I wasn't going there. I just wanted to find an empty campsite and sit at a table to make my call. There were lots of empty spots because the whole side of the campground where I was going was empty. There weren't any other campers nearby. It was quiet and dark. I called my friend and talked for about 20 minutes. While I was sitting there, looking straight ahead, I saw a shadowy figure walking down the road in front of me. The figure was coming toward me, where there were all these empty campsites. I could tell it was a person. It's not uncommon to see people taking a late night walk in the campground. The people I usually see have long hair, but this person didn't. I wasn't scared at this point. There was no reason to be. I was just watching with curiosity. As the person got closer, I could see more clearly that it was a man. Then I also noticed he start walking slower. I kept my eyes on him as I kept talking on the phone. A minute or two went by, and now he stopped walking. He just stood there in the road, staring straight into the campsite where I was. I didn't know if I knew him or if he could see me clearly. He was looking at me, and I was looking right back at him. He was a bit big and tall. I could also see he was wearing a light jacket. I couldn't see his face very well, but I thought he might be a man in his 30s or 40s. Now I was getting really worried. I felt like my brain stopped working. I couldn't move, and I wasn't even listening to my friend on the phone anymore. I was just staring at the guy, and then he started walking again. He was sneaking towards me, moving very quietly, like he didn't want to be heard. He took careful steps, leaning forward a bit. It seemed like he was about to run at me. Suddenly, I shook off my frozen feeling, jumped off the picnic table, and ran through the campsite back towards the trail. I could hear him stomping behind me, crunching leaves as he walked. His heavy footsteps were getting louder and closer. I reached the narrow trail just in time. When he got near where I had been, I heard twigs snapping. I think maybe he tripped, or almost tripped, or maybe a tree branch hit him in the face. He probably didn't know the trail like I did. Whatever happened, it made him stop chasing me. I didn't stop to look back. I just kept running and running. It was still a fun trip, and I enjoy spending time with my family, but now I'm more careful about going for walks alone. I know someone who really loves searching for Bigfoot, but I was surprised because he's really sensible and fair-minded. He told me that his group has found lots of interesting evidence. Then he suggests some documentaries for me to watch. After a few drinks and some more looking into it, I got really interested. The next day, I called him and asked when they were going to look for Bigfoot again. I was happy when he said I could come with them that weekend. He told me what camping stuff to bring. Like most people, I enjoy camping and exploring. I was just looking for some fun, not taking it too seriously. First, my friend tried knocking on wood. He said it's how Bigfoot might talk, or should I say big feet. He just hit a piece of wood against a tree. He went to a big oak tree, grabbed a board, and started hitting the tree really hard, over and over again. He looked pretty weird doing it. Then he stopped, and I heard the same sound from far away. I nearly broke a cinder block. Someone or something was answering him. The people looking for Bigfoot were just smiling and said it was a good sign. They thought Bigfoot might still be around. Is it really good that Bigfoot is less than a mile away? I never believed in it before, but now the forest seemed much scarier than it did before. I imagine a huge hairy ape from North America, about 8 feet tall, grabbing me and taking me into the trees for who knows what. It made me shudder. My new friend, who I'm starting to think might be a bit crazy, says Bigfoot is mostly harmless. He says there have been some attacks, but usually they warn you first and prefer to stay hidden. I asked him how they warn people, and he said, "You'll see. We're gonna make him really mad tonight." Oh great, I'm basically bothering Sasquatch. It's freezing, and all I have is a machete. I was already nervous from the wood knocking, and now I knew something was about to happen. So the night went by pretty smoothly. Someone brought some hot dogs, and we cooked them on the campfire. We sang songs like "Kumbaya, my lord, Kumbaya," and so on. But things got serious around 1 a.m. My friend tells me we're totally safe, but I don't agree. He goes on to say that now we've moved camp out of their area, the Bigfoot will probably leave us alone. I guess he was right, because the rest of the night was pretty calm. I couldn't sleep for obvious reasons. I tried looking into the trees, even shining my flashlight along the tree line, but that just made me a target for the rocks being thrown, and I couldn't see anything clearly, just dark shapes. They seemed big, but they could have been pranksters.